What a fantastic day, and it's just been such a pleasure to be here and hear all the inspiring stories and sharing and talk of being creative and innovating and adapting and overcoming fear and anxiety. It's just been incredible to hear all of these things and to hear them being shared. Thank you. I hope I can give you something else to add to that. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I was asked to talk a little about being a climate reality leader. I don't know how many people have heard about the Climate Reality Project. Has anybody heard about the Climate Reality Project already? Yeah, not many. I think I may spot another leader. Is that right? So this was a project that was set up by Al Gore, former Vice President of the US, and he set this fund from the Nobel Peace Prize Fund and from the revenue from his film An Inconvenient Truth. He set up this organisation called Climate Reality, and he wanted to set out to train people around the world to give them the access to the latest in science and impacts and solutions in order to allow them to share them with their own local community and in their own areas. So now there's about 20,000 climate reality leaders have been trained around the world. I did my training in 2013, and the reason I did it was I was taking a break from my professional work and bringing up my kids, and we just moved house. I was in a new place in a rural community. I'd put the kids to bed and was doing the dishes, and I had on the radio in the background, and I could hear them talking about parts per million and the amount of carbon dioxide that was in the atmosphere. And previously I'd had the privilege of working with some climate experts in Scotland on the original Climate Change Act. So I understood what those numbers meant, but the way they were being communicated was so casual and laid back that it really alarmed me. And I was frightened. And I thought, come on, how are we going to communicate better about this so that people know what this means? So after blubbing into the sink, I realised that wasn't going to get me anywhere, especially where I didn't know folk and I couldn't get together with anybody initially. So I went online and I found out more about the Climate Reality Project, and I applied for their training. I was very surprised to be immediately accepted for their next training, which was in Chicago. So, big financial and carbon cost to assess whether I should go. I bounced this off a few people who I knew who'd worked on climate stuff before and in communities, and realised that there wasn't really access to such a resource in Scotland that was so frequently updated and of such high quality in terms of film and science and everything else, that we didn't really have those resources easily elsewhere. So I went and did the training, and then came back and had to start taking that presentation around Scotland. So the privilege of that has been to meet lots of people who are doing stuff or beginning to act on climate around Scotland, and that might be in businesses or communities, often in communities or conferences or wherever. And now we've got several climate reality leaders. I think there were only about 2 or 3 in Scotland when I trained, but now I think we've got about a dozen, and that's a resource that is open to you. Everybody who's a climate reality leader in Scotland is a volunteer, and you can request these presentations online, and if you feel that that would be useful in your work or for your community, then you can ask any climate reality leader if they'll come and visit you and bring that talk to them. This is one of our latest presentations. This is me working with our youngest climate reality leader in Scotland, who is just 16, and she was trained in Berlin last year after 5 years of active community work on climate, which was just amazing. This is 24 Hours of Reality, an annual global event to connect people up with what's going on in other communities. So like me, in every community around, every country around the world, there are people who are trained to talk about the science and the impacts and the solutions and tell their own stories and share perspectives from all over the world. And this will be an opportunity to connect in with a global conversation on the 20th to the 21st of November 2019. So if any of you would like a presentation, you can request one online. For every participant at these talks, there will be a tree planted by Climate Reality to encourage people to come along and be part of something which is global. Also, I would encourage you, social media will be active around this over the 24 hours particularly, so do promote your project, because what you're doing is enabling people to do. So I may go and give the talk, and people may be interested, and their confidence in their own knowledge in climate change and what's happening right now might be enthused by that. But actually, what really matters is what they can do, and what you're all doing is enabling people to do things, and that's the really exciting part. When I go and do the talk, the first part is fine for me. It's quite a challenging talk to hear to begin with, but then you get into the solution stuff, and then it goes to the group who have asked to have this event, and it gets really exciting because it's about local or solutions that are appropriate to that place and those people, and that's when it gets really inspiring. Since we are sharing stories of overcoming fear and anxiety, this picture was taken in Berlin last year when I was asked to help deliver the training. And Al Gore was getting his mic taken off over here, and I was getting mic'd up over here. And that is one of the most terrifying experiences that I've ever had in my life. So while this might look like I'm feeling okay about it, inside I absolutely wasn't feeling okay about it. This is our youngest climate reality leader when she was just 11 in 2015, leading the climate change march before the Paris negotiations. Some of you will have been on that, I'm sure. Community, wow, that's what an exploration today. The diversity, the different barriers, the understanding of people, place, there's just so much in that term which it gets so talked about. As I've said, it's really inspiring to be able to go and see and hear what other people are doing around the country. And today was just huge because it was so much of that. In our community, what we've done is create a space where folk can come and talk about climate stuff. And we just called it Climate Cafe because you get a cup of tea and a biscuit if you would like. And every month there is a space where you can just come and chat. It's very informal, it's very relaxed, there's no expectation of anybody. And we ran it for 6 months in 2015 to just see whether that was something that people would appreciate, because after hearing the talk, people wanted to ask questions and stop me in the street and ask me something at the co-op, and it seemed much better to get everybody together if they wanted to do that. So we kicked this off in 2015. A year later, we had 100 people on the mailing list and engaging through social media as well on top of that. And now the model is being picked up in other places. So climate cafes are popping up around Scotland. There's one in Aberdeen. There's 3 or 4 now in our local area. There's another one coming in the local town. And there's some popping up internationally as well. So just a space. And what we talked about at the beginning, what Rob was talking about, actually that space allows people to get creative and to have a bit of time out to just think about what might be possible in their local area. Creativity has been touched upon a few times today, and this was one of the things that came out of the early days of our Climate Cafe. There was a project at that time in the run-up to Paris about what you love, show what you love about what you love and is under threat with climate change. And we popped up a few spaces around the community, in the garden, in the street, in the community centre, just allow people to create their own flag to say what they loved and why they wanted action on climate change. We were doing a concert and we thought, well, maybe get about 10 metres of this bunting to hang up around the hall. We ended up with 100 metres of this bunting to hang around the hall, and people delivering material to our doorsteps and helping to make these. What was really interesting was who was engaging. In the end, we ended up with contributions. Each flag was made by an individual, and we had contributions from 2-year-olds right through to our then, now 109, but then 106-year-old. Well, she's older. Then 106-year-old. So everybody felt able to engage. And actually, what was interesting was sometimes it was the dads who weren't necessarily having the conversations around upcycling or other places who would come, and while their child was making a flag, make their own and just share their own message as well. That's, as you can see, the bunting hung up in Paris. We took it there as a voice from our community. And other creative ways that we've explored how to engage other people in this conversation, because it's not going out talking about climate change, it's just creating spaces where folk can, if they want to, talk about climate change. This is our music festival, which also works with our community growing projects and includes the creative people in our area, writing, in Dunkeld and Burnham. For the love of health was one of the things that somebody came up with. So that's our music festival that we have every year. But as we say, every community is different, and just sharing the ideas like today has been just amazing. As I said, the thing that people really want to focus on once they feel confident in their knowledge about climate is what they can do. And enabling action in your own local community where there's the trust and the relationships and the best sense of what the barriers are or what the opportunities are is just fantastic. One thing I saw on Twitter from the climate outreach team recently was a quote just saying, "Forget unconsciously nudging people to make the right carbon choice. When people really understand, they will do so at scale." And we see this so often that sometimes we can really wait for something to happen for a long time, and then suddenly it can happen really quickly. So, we do have a challenge. It's now 6 months since the First Minister acknowledged the climate emergency, and there has been a great deal of focus on the climate challenge, with the programme for government having climate at its centre, the new statute, which, as the Cabinet Secretary reiterated, has a more ambitious target by 2030. We've got our Just Transition Commission, more strong voices coming from Parliament about the budget scrutiny which has been underway as well, and making sure that that is consistent with the challenge that we face, and some quite strong language about actually we need to be thinking about the things which we are doing now. It's fine to be adding new things, but actually there's some challenges about what we are doing now that we need to really get stuck into. I carry this little, I'm working on sustainable transport just now, and I carry this little Duplo model around with me. The yellow bricks, this is the emissions from our transport sector. Each Duplo brick is roughly 1 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions. And the yellow ones are all the road traffic. Now, a very tiny percentage of that, something between 3 and 5%, are bus emissions. All the rest is road, it is cars and trucks. And actually, where is the majority of our transport spend focused right now? Is on building new roads and new capacity for air and car traffic. So this is the stuff that we need to get stuck into. What you can't see probably is that this bottom one, this little brick at the bottom, this is all road and air. This is public transport, trains, ferries, and a tiny slither of buses. So that's the old narrative. But what's quite exciting now is that this is where the new stories are being created, and this is where we can tap into what Rob is saying, allowing our imaginations to think about what that future is, that cycling project, all the other benefits, the social benefits, the health benefits, the connectivity, the access for everybody. All of that is a really empowering and exciting story for Scotland. And that's the stuff, this is the stuff. What you're doing is shifting. We're creating the new stories now, and that is extremely exciting. Next year, we will be hosting the international negotiations on climate change, and that is huge. And your voices matter now, they matter in your own communities, they matter nationally in terms of informing how we tackle this climate emergency as a nation. But next year, you'll have the opportunity to share these stories and learn from other stories from communities around the world, and that is a fantastic opportunity, and I really hope that everyone will help inspire and enthuse and inform and share learning from here as well, because there's so many good stories to tell. The doing, the enabling, the doing is really important because it's that leadership by action, not by saying, but by doing. And the inspiration from the Climate Heroes just really brings that home, because it's exciting and it's engaging and it shows you what is possible and that there is a different narrative which is possible. So I hope that you will raise your voice, that you'll do that exciting. When there is a need for the infrastructure as well as the enthusiasm, please call for it. Don't be shy. Don't be shy to be inconvenient. Don't be shy to think, do I need to ask this question? You know, we're in a climate emergency and you guys will know best what's going on and what you need within your community. And if we doubt what we can do, this is my close to home example. This is my pair that I was carrying sandwiches for in January I didn't expect a climate campaign to come from these children, but they were inspired by Greta, as so many of us, in December, and said, right, we have to go to the Parliament. So we spent 5 hours on a lot of cold days standing outside Parliament, or sitting in their case. But then I took them back in September. And when they went round the corner to see that and to march with these other children and young people and everyone else who had come out to support them, 20,000 other people outside the Parliament, that's what can happen suddenly, very quickly. So thank you for all you're doing and all the inspiration and all the ideas and sharing. It's been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.